Mama always said the world's a big place. She never said nothing about it being as full of stories. But every time I step into a new place, I feel like the pages just start tinning on their own. Arizona is one of those places where the ground talks and the sky listens. Welcome to Arizona. The air here don't move fast. It drifts like it got all day. And the light, it ain't just bright, it's gold. Not the kind you spend, but the kind you carry home in your memory. When I first set foot here, the dirt felt like old paper and the wind smelled like history. Dry, warm, and full of whispers. The kind of place where every rock's been sitting a while and every cactus is minding its own business. The skies go on forever. Sometimes they turn the color of a copper penny. Sometimes they stay so blue, it hurts your heart in a good way. Folks think deserts are empty, but that's not true. They're just real quiet. And when you get real quiet too, you start to hear things like your own thoughts settling, or a bird making a sound so small it don't have a name. I met a man outside a gas station near Winslow once. Said he'd lived in Arizona his whole life. He was sitting in a lawn chair next to a bag of oranges. Told me he used to be a school teacher, but now he just waits for the sun to set. Said it's different every day and better than any television. He pointed at the horizon and said, "See that? That's where the sky and the ground have been meeting since before memory." I didn't know what to say, so I just nodded. Sometimes nodding is better than talking. Arizona is full of things that don't rush, like lizards sunbathing on the rocks, or old pickup trucks leaning into the dust. Even the rivers, when they show up, seem to move like molasses. There's towns here that look like they stopped in time. Places where the diner still has a jukebox and the waitress calls you Han. You order a slice of pie and it tastes like 1973. I once stayed the night in a town called Snowflake. Didn't see any snow and only one flake, and that was me. But the stars came out that night like they were having a reunion. Felt like the whole sky was sharing a secret, just with me. There's something honest about this land. It don't pretend. You get what you see, dust, stone, sun, and time. But somehow it's more than that. It's what you feel when you're standing still, and the earth don't seem to mind you. If you ever come this way, take your time. Drink a glass of water when you find one, and talk to strangers. They got good stories, especially out here where the wind listens. Arizona don't ask for much, just that you look around a little more. Maybe sit on a porch or a rock and just be. I reckon some places were made for moving, but Arizona was made for staying still, even just for a while. You are the traveler now. Some things you see with your eyes. Some things you feel with your chest. The Grand Canyon does both. It ain't just a hole in the ground. It's a whole conversation between the earth and the sky. Been going on for millions of years. And it don't look like they're anywhere near done talking. First time I stood at the edge, I didn't say nothing, didn't need to. Just looked out and let it fill me up. The colors kept changing. Red, orange, rust, gold, like the land was breathing through paint. The wind down there has a voice. It don't shout, just hums low, like a lullaby from long ago. It knows how to wait, and if you sit still long enough, it might tell you something. I saw a little girl throw a penny into the canyon. Her mama asked what she wished for. She said that it stays like this forever. Made me smile. Sometimes kids say the wisest things. They say the canyon was carved by a river, but I think maybe it was carved by time, slow and steady, like life. I met a man named Earl sitting on a bench near the south rim. Said he'd been coming there every year since 1971. His wife used to sit right next to him. Now he just brings her picture. Said it still feels like she's there. He told me, "You don't come here to look. You come here to remember what quiet feels like." I believe him. There's a trail called Bright Angel that snakes down into the canyon. It's steep and dusty, and it smells like cedar and sweat. I didn't go far, but just enough to see how small I was. Funny how being small can make you feel bigger inside. Out here, the sun rises like a whisper and sets like a promise. Birds ride the warm air like they own it. And the rocks, well, the rocks remember everything. If you ever come, bring water and shoes that know how to walk. And take your time. The canyon don't rush, and neither should you. Don't worry if you don't understand it all. You're not supposed to. You're just supposed to be there. Let it hold you a while. And maybe, just maybe, you'll leave with something you didn't come with. Some rivers don't go straight. They take their time. They curve, twist, lean into the land like they're thinking about it. That's what Horseshoe Bend looks like. A river changing its mind, real gentle-like. It's just outside Page, Arizona, but feels like a world that ain't quite finished being built. The walk to it ain't long, but the heat clings to you like a second skin. Dust gets in your socks. Sun gets in your bones. Then you get there, and the earth just opens up. There it is, wide as a thought. The Colorado River, bending in a perfect U, like it's hugging the rock it couldn't bear to cut through. It don't make a sound, but it speaks real loud. I saw a boy, maybe 10 or 11, drop to his belly at the edge just to peek over. His daddy grabbed his belt loop and said, "Easy now. That canyon's got no bottom for a foolin'." The boy just grinned and whispered, "Wow." That's what most folks say when they see it. Wow. And then not much else. The rocks are this deep, sleepy red, like they've been soaked in sunsets. And down below, the river shines like a ribbon made of sky. It moves slow and sure, like it knows exactly where it's headed, but don't mind Taquin the long way. I met a woman leaning on the rail, crying real quiet. She said her husband always wanted to see this place. She brought his hat and his favorite old camera. Said she took the picture for him anyway. That's the kind of place this is, where folks remember the people they miss, where the silence feels like prayer. You don't need a tour guide here, just good shoes and a heart that's open. There ain't no fence, just a ledge in the wind and your better judgment. But somehow, folks stand there real still. Maybe they feel how old it all is, and how small they are. The sun moves slow over canyon. By late afternoon, the light hits it just right, turns the rocks gold, makes the river sparkle like it's smiling up at you. One man said it looked like the land was bowing. I thought that was real nice. If you ever come, bring water and leave nothing behind but your breath. Don't rush. Let the land shape your thoughts a little. I reckon not all beautiful things are allowed. Some just curve real quiet through the world and leave you feeling like you saw something true. Some walls are built to keep things out. Some are made to hold things in. Glen Canyon Dam's one of those. Big, quiet, holding back a whole lot more than just water. You drive up and it's just there, carved into the canyon, like it's part of it, even though it ain't. Concrete stacked so high it makes your neck ache to see the top. It don't shout. It just stands. like a giant that don't move much anymore. The Colorado River hits the back of it, like a thought trying not to spill over. And behind it is Lake Powell, shimmering, stretching, pretending to be calm. I stood there on the bridge, wind blowing up from the canyon, looking down at all that blue water pushing against the dam. It looked like a pause breath, like the whole desert was waiting for someone to exhale. Folks built this thing back in the 60s, said it'd light up houses and make water behave, and I guess it did. But it also drowned a canyon folks still miss. I met a man in a straw hat leaning on the railing, said he used to come fishing down here before the lake got made. He looked out at the water like it stole something. Then he smiled and said, "But I reckon progress don't always ask permission." He pulled a photo out his wallet, a little black and white picture of his dad standing knee-deep in a river that ain't there no more. Said, "That's what I come to remember. Places change. That's just how time works. But some folks still come here to feel what's underneath. They got tours and plaques, and facts if you want them, but you don't need all that to feel the weight of it. Just stand there. Watch the swallows fly through the gorge like they've been doing it for centuries. They don't care about concrete or politics. They just dance in the wind. There's a spot near the visitor center with a view that makes the whole dam look small. If you stand there long enough, the shadow stretches slow across the canyon. It's quiet up there, real quiet, except for the hum of the turbines down below, turning river into light. If you ever come, take a moment, not just for what's there, but for what used to be, what's buried under all that stillness. I reckon some things in life get held back for a reason, and some just overflow no matter what you build. Sometimes, when you hold back a river, it don't stop, it just changes shape. That's what Lake Powell is. A canyon filled with water, but the shape of the canyon's still there underneath. The lake is quiet in a strange kind of way, like it remembers being dry, like the rocks below are still whispering. Even under all that blue, I stood on the shore one morning just after sunrise. The light was soft and yellow, like butter melting on the cliffs. You could see reflections so perfect it made the world look upside down. Boats moved slow across the water, leaving ripples that touched the canyon walls like a secret handshake. Fishermen stood still in silence, like they were praying with their poles. I met a couple camping near the water. Their tent was red and flapping in the breeze. They said they'd been coming to the same spot for 20 years. Showed me a tree they planted from a little seed once. It hadn't grown much, but it was still there. They were proud of that. There's a lot of hidden places here. Coves, narrow passages, rock arches floating like they're hands in midair. Sometimes, if you take a boat real slow, you can hear the canyon walls echo your voice right back to you. I said hello and got 5 hellos back. Felt like the place was talking to me. They say the lake's lower now than it used to be. Too many dry years. But what's left still shines. Still carries the sky in its hands. If you come here, bring a wide brim hat and some patience. And if you get the chance, float out far from shore, lay back in the boat, and just listen. No phones, no motors, just the water and the wind, and maybe the sound of what used to be. Some places are loud with beauty. Lake Powell just hums. There's a hush inside Antelope Canyon, not the kind that makes you nervous, the kind that makes you listen. It's a slot canyon, narrow as a whisper, tucked into the sandstone just outside a page. You walk in and the light changes, turns soft, turns gold, turns to ribbons floating down from heaven. The walls curve like waves frozen in time. They ain't straight. They twist and bend, smooth like melted candle wax, but hard as history. I was in there with a small group, each of us barely speaking, like we were in church made by wind. Our guide was a Navajo woman named Elsie. She pointed to a shaft of sunlight breaking through the roof and said, "This is the spirit light." Then she closed her eyes for just a second. Not praying, not explaining, just feeling. She told us the canyon was shaped by flash floods, storms that come fast and leave fast, but they carve deep. I thought about that, how quick things can happen, and how long their mark can last. I saw a heart in the rock, and a bear, and a wave curling like it was about to crash. All of it just a stone playing with shadow. A little girl in front of me stopped still. She looked up and said, "It's like being inside a dream." And I reckon she was right. There ain't much room to move fast in Antelope Canyon. You gotta shuffle slow, look where your feet go, and look up, always look up. Sometimes the light hits just right, and the walls turn purple, then pink, then orange, and for a moment, it feels like the canyon is breathing. The air is still down there, but the silence moves. Not heavy, just deep. If you go, mind the weather. This place fills up fast when the rains come, but when it's dry, It's like walking through a song the earth's been singing for 1,000 years. I didn't take many pictures. Some beauty's too quiet for a photograph. It just has to be stood in. Out here, the land don't move much. It just stands tall and still, like it's waiting on you to notice it. Monument Valley is where the sky gets big and the ground gets honest, where red dust rises with each step. And the buttes, those giant rock towers, they look like they're watching. They got names like Eagle Rock, the Mittens, Totem Pole, but you don't need a name to feel them. They speak without words. The wind out here don't rush. It brushes past your ears, telling stories you can't quite hear, but you still feel them deep down. I met a Navajo man named Thomas. He drove an old pickup with a dog in the back. Said his grandfather used to herd sheep where tourists take pictures now. He smiled real quiet and said, "This land is spirit. Even if you don't believe it, it believes in you." That sat with me. Sunsets here are different. They don't fall, they stretch. Long shadows reach across the sand like fingers finding home. There's no noise out here except wind and birds and your own boots crunching. Makes a person feel real small, but not in a bad way. If you come respectful. This land belongs to more than maps. It belongs to memory. I reckon some places don't need to be understood, just stood in. Some folks think the desert's just brown, but not this one. The painted desert is like the earth remembered how to blush. I got there in the early morning when the sky was just barely awake, and the colors, well, they looked like someone took a handful of sunrise and laid it across the hills. Reds, pinks, purples, oranges, layered like old stories in stone. Each one soft and dusty, but proud in its own quiet way. The land rolls gentle here. Not sharp, not high, just smooth like waves that forgot how to move. I saw a jackrabbit skip across the path, ears tall as dreams. He paused, looked at me like I might be somebody, then hopped off like he had a better place to be. There was a bench overlooking the valley. I sat there a while. Didn't check my watch. Didn't count the minutes. Just watched the shadow of a cloud move across a mesa like a slow dance. A woman came by wearing a hat with feathers. Said she was a painter from Tucson. She told me she'd been trying to mix the right color to match the hills for years. Said, every time I think I've got it, the sun shifts and the land becomes something new. Then she laughed and said, maybe I ain't supposed to catch it. Maybe it just wants to be seen. I like that. There's petrified with nearby. Trees turned to stone, holding their shape for hundreds of millions of years. They don't grow anymore, but they remember how. This whole place feels like it remembers. Every hill and ridge, every crack in the dry earth. It's all holding on to something. If you come out this way, bring water and a slow heart. There's no rush in the painted desert, just colors that wait for the right light and a silence that sounds like peace. I reckon it's one of those places that don't try to impress you. It just stands there, beautiful without even knowing it. Some things are beautiful without moving an inch. That's how the Vermilion Cliffs feel. Like the land stood up once and then stayed that way. You don't stumble across them. You head out there on purpose. The road gets long and empty, but the kind of empty that clears your head. Then all of a sudden they're just there. Big red walls stretching across the desert like the edge of a giant's old coat, faded and dusty, but still holding strong. The colors are deep, not bright like the painted desert, but heavier like old bricks soaked in sun. I saw a hawk gliding along the cliff line, its wings barely moving, just floating on the warm air like it belonged there more than I ever could. I met a ranger sitting on the tailgate of his truck, eating a peanut butter sandwich. Said folks don't come out here much unless they mean to. Told me about a place called the Wave, a sandstone fold hidden in the cliffs. Real hard to reach, even harder to forget. He looked at me and said, some beauty don't come easy. Then he handed me half his sandwich. There ain't no gift shop here. No lines or signs or shiny maps. Just the cliffs, the sky, and a stillness so big, it makes you feel like you've stepped into a thought. If you ever come, bring your quiet. Leave behind your hurry. Let the land speak in its own slow way. I reckon the Vermilion Cliffs don't try to impress anybody. They just are, and somehow that's more than enough. Some mountains look like they're just sitting there, but the superstitions, they look like they're watching. They rise up east of Phoenix, sharp and jagged, like teeth bitten into the sky. The desert gets quiet out there. Even the wind seems to tiptoe. Folks call it superstition for a reason. There's stories buried in those rocks. Old stories, strange ones, about gold, ghosts, and folks who went looking for one and found the other. I took a trail one morning. Sun already climbing. Air warm like breath on your neck. The ground crunch underfoot, gritty dry, but honest. Cactus stood tall, like they'd been guarding the path for 100 years. I passed one with a bird nest right in its arms. Felt like a hug with needles. The trail twisted up through canyons and ridges, and every now and then you'd hear something, a rock sliding, a lizard darting, maybe just your own heart. I met a man named Walt sitting on a rock, whittling. Said he'd been out there 3 days looking for the lost Dutchman mine. He laughed when he said it, but not all the way. Said his granddaddy tried too, and his granddaddy before him. Told me folks disappear out here sometimes, but most just get lost in themselves. He handed me a piece of wood shaped like a boot and said, "Not all treasure's buried." I reckon he was right. The sun gets real heavy in the afternoon. It presses on your shoulders, and the shadows grow long, like they're reaching for something. I found a spot overlooking a dry wash, sat down, drank some water, and watched a hawk ride the heat. Didn't think much, just listened. They say you shouldn't hike here alone. I agree, but not cause of the legends, just 'cause some beauty feels better when you got someone to share it with. If you come, start early, bring more water than you think. And if you hear the mountains calling, listen close, but walk slow. The superstitions don't give up their stories easy, but they always leave you with something, even if it's just quiet. From far off, it looks just like a camel laying down, head up, back arched, resting in the desert heat. But once you start climbing Camelback, you learn real quick it ain't resting at all. It's waiting right in the heart of Phoenix. This mountain rises sudden and proud, like it remembered what it used to be, The trail starts friendly enough. A little gravel, a few steps, then it gets steeper. Rocks start talking over. Your breath gets shorter, but your view gets bigger. I pass a man jogging up like it was nothing. He smiled and said, "Almost there." Even though we both knew it wasn't true, there was a lady behind me, climbing slow with her grandson. She kept saying, "One more step." And he kept saying, "Are we there yet?" But she never stopped, and neither did he. When you finally reach the top, it ain't loud, no big fanfare, just wind and rock and a view so wide. It makes your heart stretch a little. The whole city's down below, looking small and still, like someone pressed pause. I sat up there with a bottle of warm water, sweat cooling on my back. Felt like I'd earned something. Not a prize, just a moment. There's graffiti scratched into the stone. Names, dates, little hearts. Proof that people were here and wanted the mountain to remember them. If you go, start early. That sun don't mess around. And bring shoes that know what they're doing. The rock gets slick where it's worn thin. I reckon Camelback don't care if you make it all the way. But if you do, you'll see more than just a view. You'll see what you're made of. You don't always have to leave the desert to find the forest. Sometimes you just have to go up. Mount Lemmon sits high above Tucson, rising like a surprise out of the heat. You drive up that mountain road, and it's like flipping through the pages of a book. Desert turns to scrub, scrub turns to pines, and the air gets sweeter with every mile. I rolled the window down just to let it in. Smelled like dirt and green things. Heard birds I didn't know the names of, and wind whispering through trees like it had news to share. At the top, there's a little town called Summerhaven. Not much to it. A cafe, some cabins, folks sitting on porches. I met a man there with a beard full of gray and a sweater full of crumbs. He said he comes up here every July to remember what cool feels like. He gave me a slice of pie that tasted like fall. Said it was apple, but I think it was more memory than fruit. Mount Lemmon don't brag. It just gives you what you didn't know you needed. Shade, quiet, and a sky that feels closer than usual. If you're ever near Tucson, take that drive. Go slow. Let the desert fall away behind you. And when you get to the top, breathe deep. It's good up there. The Sonoran Desert don't look like much from far away. Just dry land, maybe a cactus or two. But if you walk real slow and keep your eyes soft, you'll see it's full of life try its best. The light here is strong. It don't hide nothing. Everything's out in the open. The rocks, the bones, the lizards, the truth. I walked through a patch of it just after sunrise. The saguaro cacti stood tall and strange. Arms lifted like they were skin, the sky a question. One had a woodpecker hole in its side. A little round doorway for a bird that didn't pay rent. Made me smile. There was a jackrabbit watching me from a distance. Didn't blink. Just sat there like he owned the place. And maybe he did. I met a woman sitting on a camp chair with a sketchbook in her lap. She was drawing a barrel cactus in purple pencil. Said the color wasn't right, but the feeling was. I like that. She told me the desert's a place where things survive. Not 'cause they're strong, but 'cause they're smart. Said everything here knows how to wait. That stayed with me. There's wildflowers too, but they hide until the rain tells them it's safe. Then they show up all at once. Like a miracle. If you walk here, bring water, and don't talk too much. This land don't shout. It just listens. I reckon the Sonoran Desert is like an old soul, quiet, cracked, and full of beauty, if you take the time to see it. Some places feel like vacation, just rolled itself into town and stayed a while. That's Lake Havasu. Right out in the desert, you get this big, blue stretch of water, like somebody dropped a piece of ocean by mistake, then decided to build boats around it. The sun here don't play games. It shines full all day long. The kind of sunshine that makes your skin tingle and your soul wake up a little. The water's cool, clear enough to see your own feet dancing. Folks float on giant swans and flamingos. Logan, like the world, don't have no worries. I walked down near the shore and saw a bunch of kids jumping off a dock, one by one, splashing like their hearts couldn't hold still. Their dog tried to jump in too, but changed his mind at the last second and just barked at the waves. There's an old bridge here, the London Bridge, believe it or not. They took it apart piece by piece over in England and built it back up right here in Arizona. Strangest thing I ever saw. Old stone arches, standing in the desert heat like they forgot where they came from. I met a man fishing under that bridge. Said he came here 30 years ago on a honeymoon, then stayed after marriage ended. He smiled real quiet and said, "Some things you don't plan on loving. You just do." The town's full of ice cream shops and boat rentals. Folks wear flip-flops like it's a uniform. Even the wind feels like it's had a beer and put its feet up. If you come here, bring sunscreen and don't be in a hurry. The lake don't care what time it is. It just wants you to float a while. And when the sun starts to set, the water turns gold and the boats all drift slow, like they're heading back home after a good long laugh. I reckon Lake Havasu is the kind of place where time takes its shoes off and goes barefoot with you. The Colorado River don't rush, but it don't wait either. It just keeps on moving, carving, bending, giving, talking, like it knows where it's going. But don't mind talking the long way. I first saw it early in the day, when the sun was still yawning. The water was dark and smooth, like polished stone stretched out in motion. Birds skimmed across it, leaving tiny trails in the quiet. This river's old, real old, older than any town it passes, older than most names we've given it. It's been working on the land for millions of years, cutting canyons so deep they feel like thoughts. I sat by the bank near Yuma once, watched the fishermen pull up nothing, then shrug like that was part of the fun. He said, "You don't fish this river for fish. You fish it for peace." Then he tossed his line again and smiled without looking. There's farms down here that owe everything to that river. Little green squares stitched into the tan desert, like hope growing from memory. And in other places, you see kayaks drifting slow, under cliffs that look like they've been listening for a long time. I met a woman named Jo on a raft tour. She said her daddy used to call the river the Old Road. Said it took him places before the highways were finished. He'd follow it like a friend, sleep near it, listen to it sing at night. The Colorado's full of voices, if you listen long enough. Water talking to stone, stone talking to sky, and somewhere in between, you hear your own thoughts coming back different. If you ever walk beside it, bring your quiet and maybe a sandwich. Let it show you how slow can be strong, how steady don't mean stubborn, and how sometimes the thing that shapes the world don't look like much, just a ribbon of water moving through time. I reckon this river's not just part of the land, it's part of the story, and it's still writing it. There's a big hole in the earth out in Arizona, not from water or wind, but from something fouling fast, a long, long time ago. They call it Meteor Crater. I call it a reminder. You're driving through flat land, not expecting much. Then you see this giant bowl in the ground, so wide and deep it don't seem real at first. Just sitting there, quiet. Still, like the earth stopped breathing for a second. That meteor hit about 50,000 years ago. Big iron rock from space. They say it came in hotter than anything we know. 1 second the sky was fine. Next second, boom. The ground opened up like it was surprised. I stood at the edge and looked down. The wind whistled through the air like it remembered the fall. Rocks the size of houses tossed like pebbles. And down at the bottom, just silence. Not even birds fly down there. There's a little museum nearby. They've got pieces of the meteor. Jagged, black, heavy. One kid touched it and said, "This came from outer space." His dad nodded. The boy just stared. That's how it is. You don't need to say much. I met an old man cleaning the railing. Said he'd been working there 20 years. Told me folks ask the same questions every day, but it never gets old. He smiled and said, "People come here for the crater, but most leave talking about their place in the world." That sat with me. Seeing it makes you feel small, but not in a bad way. More like you're part of something big, something ancient, like you belong to the sky and the earth, both at once. If you ever come, stand still at the edge. Let the wind tell you the story. It don't shout, but it remembers everything. I reckon some holes don't need fixing. They just need understanding. Bartlett Lake, don't try to be famous. It just sits there, quiet and still, like a secret the desert keeps. The road out there winds past cactus and scrub, dust kicking up in the rear view. You don't pass much, just sky and space and silence that feels kind. Then you come over a little rise, and there it is, water, soft blue, wrapped in golden hills. Shimmering like it knows it don't belong, but it's sure glad to be here. I got there near evening. The sun was falling low, turning the lake to melted brass. Fishermen packed up their tackle. Kids skipped stones, and a couple sat on a blanket, hands folded quiet in each other's. I walked down near the shore, boots crunching over tiny shells and dry grass. You could hear the water lap against the rocks. Real gentle, like it was thinking soft thoughts. Met a man fixing up an old wooden canoe. Said his grandpa used to paddle out at sunrise. He looked up at the hills and said, "You don't have to say much out here. The land says it for you." Then he smiled and kept scrubbing the wood. There's birds here too, hawks gliding above, and tiny ones dancing in the bushes. And once, I saw a heron stand in the shallows, looking more patient than I've ever been. If you come to Bartlett Lake, don't bring a schedule. Just bring time, bring breath, and maybe sit still long enough to see the light change colors, without even noticing it happened. Some places don't ask for attention. They just give you peace. Sabino Canyon ain't far from Tucson, but it feels a world away. You leave the city behind, and pretty soon you're walking beside a creek that's been whispering through stone for longer than folks have had names for things. The trail winds gentle through cottonwood and mesquite. Water runs right alongside you, sometimes trickling, sometimes tumbling, but always talking. I dipped my fingers in, cold as truth, clean too, felt like it knew something. The canyon walls rise up red and quiet. They don't lean over you. They just stand there like parents watching from a distance. I passed a little girl with wet shoes and a pocket full of pebbles. She showed me one that sparkled in the sun, said it was lucky. I told her I believed her. Further up the trail, I found a shady spot beneath a sycamore tree. Birds flitted through the branches, their shadows skipping across the sand. I sat down, listened, didn't write nothing, didn't need to. A man in a ranger hat rode by on a bicycle. He nodded and said, "Pretty quiet today." I nodded back and thought, that's the best kind of day. Sabino's one of those places where you start out looking for a view, but end up finding your breath. There's trams that'll carry you up, but I like walking. Feet on the path, heart open, mind letting go. If you go, bring water, and maybe a thought you've been holding too tight. The canyon knows how to carry things for a while. I reckon Sabino don't try to be grand. It just offers stillness and waits to see what you do with it. Jerome ain't a town you drive through. It's one you drive up to, hug tight against a mountain like it's afraid of falling. Or maybe like it just don't want to let go. Used to be a mining town, back when copper was king, and the hills were full of noise and men and dust. Now it's quieter, but the stories still rattle the windows. The streets twist like a question you ain't sure how to answer. Shops hang crooked on the hillside. Art galleries, wine rooms, antiques that might remember more than you do. I stopped in a little cafe where the floor sloped so much. My coffee leaned left. The waitress smiled and said, "Don't worry, we're all a little tilted up here." I liked her. Walked around for a while, past rusted staircases and crumbling brick walls. A cat sat on a roof watching me like it owned the town. Some folks say Jerome's haunted. Maybe it is. Old buildings got creaks and groans. And late at night the wind does things that feel like footsteps. But I reckon most of the ghosts here are just memories. That never packed up. I met a man who owned a music shop. Tiny room full of guitars and records that smelled like yesterday. He said he came to Jerome for a weekend once, 20 years ago. Said the mountain didn't let him leave. Sometimes places choose you, not the other way around. If you visit, wear shoes that grip, and don't be surprised if the sky looks closer than it should. Jerome may be old, but it's still humming. Softly, like a tune that ain't done yet. Bisbee's a little town that don't shout. It whispers, nestled in the hills, painted with colors that look like they've been softened by time. It started as a mining town, too. Copper, silver, and gold, all tucked beneath the earth. But now, it's got artists and dreamers, and folks who like the slow kind of beauty that grows out of history. I walked the streets lined with old brick buildings, windows that caught the afternoon sun just right. You could almost hear the echoes of pickaxes and boots, mixed with laughter and songs from long ago. There was a little bakery where the smell of fresh bread pulled me in. The baker, a woman with flour on her hands and a smile on her face, told me Bisbee's the kind of place where strangers soon feel like old friends. I sat on a bench near the town square and watched a couple dance. Not fancy, just two people who knew the rhythm of each other. The hills around town roll soft and green, and in the distance, old mines sit quiet, like forgotten dreams resting in the sun. Some say Bisbee's haunted, but I think it's just alive in a way that some places don't dare to be. If you come here, bring your slow heart. Bring your eyes ready to see the small things, like the way the light falls on a window pane, or the way a breeze carries a scent of fresh bread and pine. Bisbee don't rush. It just lets you catch up. The saguaro cactus is a quiet giant. You see him standing all over this park, arms lifted like they're trying to hug the clouds. They don't move much, but they sure do make a statement. I walked beneath those tall green sentinels. On a morning when the sun was soft and the air smelled like rain that hadn't fallen yet, birds flitted through the branches, their songs quick and happy, like they knew secrets only the desert keeps. There was a boy about 10, pointing up at the tallest cactus he'd ever seen. His grandma told him, "That's a saguaro. They live for hundreds of years. They see everything." The boy looked up and said, "I wish I could be like that." I like that thought. The park feels still, but it's full of life. Tiny flowers peek in through dry soil, lizards darting under rocks, and the slow, steady beat of a desert heart. If you come here, bring a hat, take your time, look up, and maybe think about what you want to stand tall for. The saguaros don't say much, but they listen, and somehow that's enough. Flagstaff feels like a breath you didn't know you needed. After the desert's dry heat, this place wraps you in pine and fresh air. The sky up here is big and blue, so wide it feels like it's been stretched just for looking. The town sits nestled among mountains, with streets lined by old brick and cozy shops. Coffee smells float out from cafes, and you hear the soft hum of folks just being here. I walked through the downtown square one evening, when the sun was low and the shadows long. A couple sat on a bench, hands wrapped tight like they were holding onto something precious. Near them, a street musician played a tune, soft, slow, and full of heart. Flagstaff's got stories you can feel in the air, about the railroad that brought folks here, about nights spent stargazing in the clear desert sky, and about the people who call this place home through every season. I met a woman named Grace at a diner, her eyes bright and full of kindness. She told me she's lived here all her life, and that Flagstaff's a place where time moves a little differently, slower, gentler, like a whispered promise. The mountains around town offer trails that wind through forests, where you can find quiet spots to sit and think. I found one myself, a small clearing with sun dappled through the leaves, and for a while the world felt still. If you come here, bring your curiosity, bring your quiet moments, and maybe a jacket, because the mountain breeze can sneak up on you. Flagstaff is a place where you can catch your breath, and maybe find a little piece of peace. Sedona looks like the earth decided to paint itself in bold colors. Reds and oranges so deep they feel like a story you're meant to sit with. I got there just before sunset, when the light softens and the rocks start to glow like embers. The air smelled of pine and sage, and the wind carried quiet, like it was listening for something. The town itself is small, but the land around it is huge. Towering red cliffs, smooth curves, and canyons that seem to hold secrets. I met a woman named Mary at a little art gallery. She said she'd moved to Sedona to find peace after losing someone she loved. She told me the rocks help her heal, like they absorbed her pain and gave it back as calm. We walked a trail called Cathedral Rock, where the climb was steep, but the view at the top was worth every breath. You could see the whole valley stretched out, and the sky seemed close enough to touch. People come to Sedona for all kinds of reasons. To hike, to pray, to paint, or just to breathe. There's stories of energy and spirit here. But what struck me was how still the place feels. Like the earth itself is holding its breath, waiting for you to listen. If you come here, take your time. Don't rush the trails or the quiet. Bring water and shoes that can hold on. And maybe bring your heart a little open. Sedona's beauty isn't loud. It's a soft song you gotta lean into. Oak Creek Canyon feels like a secret whispered slow. The water runs clear and cool, twisting through the rocks like it's looking for a way home. I walked along the trail one afternoon, watching sunlight dance on the ripples and listening to the soft splash and sound, quiet, gentle like a lullaby. The trees lean close here, oaks and cottonwoods, their branches making shade like a soft blanket. Birds flitted through the leaves, and every now and then a breeze carried the smell of pine and earth. I saw a family sitting by the water, kids dipping toes in Logan, their joy spilling easy like the creek itself. An old man was fishing nearby, patient and still, his line floating on the water like a quiet question. He told me once, "This place is a way of settling your thoughts, making the world feel a little kinder." I believed him. If you come here, bring shoes that can get wet, bring a slow heart, and maybe find a spot where the water's cool enough to dip your hands in. Oak Creek don't hurry. It just flows steady and sure. And if you listen close, you might hear it hum a little piece into your soul. Route 66 don't look like much from the car window, just a stretch of cracked pavement, lined with faded signs and lonely gas stations. But if you slow down, you'll hear the road whispering stories of folks who passed this way, dreamers, drifters, families packed up and heading west. I stopped at a little diner with peeling paint and neon that flickered like it was still trying to shine. The waitress had a smile that looked like it knew 100 secrets. She told me how the highway once bustled with travelers, and how the ghosts of those days still ride alongside. I walked past rusty cars and old motels, each one holding a piece of the past, like time had left its footprints in the dust. A man on a porch waved as I drove by. He said, "This road's got a heart if you listen." I nodded. I was listening. The desert stretches wide and open here, and the sky feels endless, like it's keeping watch over all the stories rolling beneath it. If you drive this road, take your time. Look for the little things. The old signs, the cracked paint, the memories caught in a faded photograph in a dusty window. Route 66 ain't just a road. It's a journey through the heart of America, 1 mile at a time. Canyon de Chelly is a quiet kind of big. The walls rise tall and red, like they've been standing watch for centuries. The wind moves slow here, carrying whispers from the past, stories carved into stone, hidden homes tucked in rock faces. I stood on the rim and looked down, seeing old ruins peeking out, reminders of folks who lived with the land, not against it. A Navajo guide once told me, "This canyon is our heart. It holds our stories, our prayers." I felt that, like the land was more than just dirt and rock. It was memory itself. If you come here, bring respect, walk soft, listen. The canyon doesn't rush. It waits patiently, offering its stories to those willing to hear. Prescott's got that quiet kind of charm. Dusty streets, wooden sidewalks, and buildings that lean on each other like old buddies. Main streets lined with shops and saloons, where folks still tip their hats, and stories hang thick in the air. I stopped in a little cafe where the coffee was strong, and the smiles were easy. The barista told me Prescott was once the capital of Arizona, and though the politics moved on, the heart stayed right here. There's a courthouse with a clock tower that ticks steady, like a heartbeat you can count on. I walked past a park where kids chased pigeons, and old men played checkers. It felt like a place that remembers what's important. Slow afternoons, simple talks, and a little kindness. If you visit, take your time. Let the town show you what it means to rest easy. Grand Falls ain't like any other waterfall you've seen. It's loud and wild, pouring water through the desert like it don't care what folks expect. I got there after some rain, and the falls were a roar, like the earth was singing out loud. The water crashes down red with the dust, making the whole place feel like it's alive and breathing. There's not much around, just you, the falls, and the sky stretching wide. I met a family camping nearby. They said this spot was their favorite, a little wild and free, in a world that tries to be neat. If you come, bring sturdy boots and a heart ready for surprise. Grand Falls don't do gentle. It does honest. Mama always said the world's a big place. She never said nothing about it being this full of stories. Welcome to Arizona. The desert's wide and open here, but it's got quiet corners where you can hear the wind tell secrets, rocks that hold old stories, and skies so big they make you feel small in the best way. I walked trails where the sun painted everything gold, sat where the river hummed like a friend, and met folks whose smiles carried warmth like the afternoon heat. Arizona's a place that don't rush. It waits, patient and steady, offering up its beauty in slow, gentle moments. If you're here, take your time. Look close. Listen soft. This land's got a way of teaching you to stand tall, to keep moving, and to find peace in the quiet. You're here now. Welcome to Arizona.